it was a member of Congress who has pledged to use these exact tactics and spread them among her colleagues. The very same tactics where, like I said, she's calling on her supporters to be, quote, strike ready, and promising that violent protests are coming. That's a direct quote from her. She was speaking to the nation. But to understand who exactly is funding this, who's behind it, this is a partner of the Harvard Ash Center's Nonviolent Action Lab. Like I said, it's very stochastically terroristic in its namesake, in the sense that they really want you to know that they're nonviolent. I'd ask you, why are they working overtime to demonstrate that they're so nonviolent? But this is a group who is sort of hosting these training sessions in conjunction with Democrat members of Congress. And the person who leads this entity is someone by the name of Erica Chenoweth. Now, she uses they, them pronouns, so do with that what she will. But this is someone who has deep, deep ties to USAID, the State Department, and the United States Institute of Peace. Her resume shows that she has lectured repeatedly at USAID in 2015, 2016, and as recently as 2022. She's also authored several reports, sort of from this nonviolent resistance revolution, color revolution framework for USAID as the lead investigator and a recipient of several five-figure grants. Some of these topics, these papers include youth and LGBTQ participation in nonviolent action, struggles from below, human rights struggles by domestic actors, and civil resistance and corporate behavior, mapping trends and assessing impact. But why this character is, I think, so particularly interesting and important is because her entire career is essentially about analyzing the most effective tools, not for protest, but for toppling dictatorial or autocratic regimes. And she wrote this whole long book where they analyze case by case hundreds of revolutions, and they come to the conclusion that nonviolent resistance is the most effective tactic or playbook, not because they disavow terrorism or violent action, but simply because they think it's just empirically a better tactic, right? What you're talking about is essentially the raw materials from an academic and literature perspective for creating bombs, or maybe in this case it's more, firebombing. But I just want to read for the audience, just to get a sense, some of the books or journal papers that this individual has written. Quote, How to Topple a Dictator, The Role of Violence in Nonviolent Resistance, Resilient Republics, Why Terrorism Does Not Destroy Democracy, The Study of Terrorism, Achievements and Analytical Challenges Ahead, To Bribe or to Bomb, Do Corruption and Terrorism Go Together? And also she wrote the seminal Oxford Handbook on Terrorism, including participating in panel discussions on events titled, quote, Is Terrorism Ever Legitimate? But I think this one piece of work really articulates the threat of this center, which is, quote, Why Civil Resistance Works, the Strategic Logic of Nonviolent Conflict. Where I said the reason why they're disavowing, at least right now, terrorism and violent action is not because they find anything morally, ethically, or principally wrong with it, just because they think it's not an effective tool. And to sort of broaden out this USAID critique, which I think the Mike Benzes of the world have accurately identified, where they essentially identify a regime that they don't like, that's populist. They then say, oh, well, you're autocratic, you're dictatorial, so therefore we can use outside the system changes, go after your pillars of support. Well, if you can believe it or not, the Ash Center, which we've actually reported on War Room years ago through a different lens, which we can get into on the Chinese Communist Party funded angle of it. But this group, though, despite the fact that they deleted their webpage showing who they're funded by, their top donors are USAID and the State Department. And one last point on Erica Chenoweth. She also has lectured repeatedly at the United States Institute of Peace. She served as a consultant to the United States Institute of Peace from 2017 to 2019, and similarly has authored a host of papers receiving 4 and 5 figure grants from this now defunct institution to spread, again, not protests, not Women's March, not let's celebrate democracy, but full-blown regime change.
Natalie, hang right there. I'm going to hold you into the next break. Two things I want to say as we go to break here with modern-day holy war. Of course, Caroline Levitt gave that great interview to David